In this lecture, we are going to set up our project and then create the necessary directories. Okay, so since this is a brand new project, first thing I'm going to do is actually add an entry in my host file so that I'll be able to create a local domain name for this project. Right, so go to C drive, Windows should be in System 32, and then I should look for drivers. Okay, so inside of drivers, look for etc and then host, or right click and then open this with Notepad++. So I'm going to create one more here, so I'll just duplicate this and then call this acme.dev. Right, so our e-commerce store will use the URL acme.dev. Save that. So if you're on a Mac and you don't know how to create virtual hosts, you can check out one of my videos in the introduction to PHP course. Navigate to Dev Screencast. So go under courses and then introduction to programming with PHP. There should be a lecture here on setting up virtual hosts on a Mac. So just watch this video and then you'll be able to set it up on your Mac. Okay, so we've done this. The next step now is to actually create an entry inside of our vhost file. Again, if this is completely new to you, all you need to do is actually just watch the one for setting it up on a Windows and then setting it up on a Mac. You actually understand what we are trying to do here. Alright, so the file that we want to edit next now should be inside of the server. I'm using XAMPP, so I'll go inside of XAMPP and then Apache and then conf and then extra and then look for httpd-vhost.conf. Okay, so inside of here, I'm going to edit it and add one more entry. Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate this. And then I'm going to change this to acme.dev, which is our server URL. And then the folder will be e-commerce. I've not created this folder yet, but we'll be creating it shortly. Our project folder is e-commerce, but actually we don't want to expose this folder to the public. So the folder that we want to expose to the public should be a public folder. All right, so we're going to save this now. And after saving this, you need to restart your server. So I'm just going to open mine and then just start it. All right, so let's see if everything works fine. Open a browser and then type in acme.dev. Okay, so this is actually going to result in an error because we actually don't have that folder yet. So what we want to do now is actually go again to XAMPP, htdocs, and then here we want to create a new folder, and then we want to call this e-commerce. All right, so I'm going to open the e-commerce folder in my text editor so that we can begin building our site. Okay, so locate XAMPP, htdocs, and then e-commerce. All right, so right here we have our empty project here. We want to start creating the different directories that we'll be needing for this e-commerce site. So the first one that I need to create is the app folder. This is the folder that's going to contain all of our logics. So our controller, our models, and other logics that we'll be needing to complete this application are all going to be inside of the app folder. Right, so the next one that I want to create is a public folder. This is the folder that will be exposing to the rest of the world. So we're going to have an index file inside of the public folder. So let's call this index.php. All right, so here we just say, hi, this is Acme store. And then let's try to refresh the page again in our browser, see if it works. Okay, so it seems that we'll not be able to use acme.dev. So let's try to see if we can actually change it. So let's say acmestore.dev. All right, so I'll save this, update this. Okay, so save it. And then we need to actually restart XAMPP. Okay, so just stop this and then restart it. Okay, so let's give it a try again, see if we can reach. This time it should be acmeinstall.dev. So now we can see here, this is acmeinstall. We have now successfully exposed the public folder to the outside world. So anything that we have inside of our app or inside of the main directory will never be exposed to the public. They'll only be able to access this index file. So from here, we are then going to route them to different places inside of our application. Okay, so the next folder that I need here is a bootstrap folder. Okay, so the bootstrap folder will be used to actually initialize our application, and also we'll be using this as our cache directory. So create a new one here and call it cache. Okay, so the next folder that I want to create is a resources folder. So this is going to be resources. Right, so these are the four main folders that we need. Then we still need to actually create some more folders inside of the resources folder. So inside of my resources folder, I want to have one more folder, which is going to be my assets. All right, so my asset is going to hold things such as my SAS file, my CSS, my JavaScript, and all of that will be inside of the assets folder. All right, so I'm going to create one more folder here, which is going to be view. All our HTML files are actually going to be inside of this folder. So everything related to the view, what the user will see when they visit the website, will be inside of here. All right. Okay, so here we are going to create some more folders called the CSS. All right, so one more called this JavaScript, JS. And then the last folder that I would create here will be for SAS files, SASS. Okay, so that will be all for now for resources. We now need to move into our app folder, which is going to be the core of our applications. Inside the app folder, I want to create a new one called classes. So this will be the folder where we will store all our EPA classes. And then I'm going to create a new one called config to hold all our configuration files. And then I'm going to create a new one called this controller. Okay, so this will be controllers. This is going to be the folder where our logic is going to be stored. So when somebody make a request to our website, we are going to have a logic inside of this folder that will actually be able to process that request. So it's not going to be working alone, it's going to be working with our routes and then also our model. All right, so I'm going to create one more folder. I'm going to call this functions. Okay, so this is a folder that will hold our EPA functions, some functions that we'll be needing to complete our applications. They're going to be here inside of this folder. So let's just create a file called this epa.php. All right, so we have a function folder and then we have a file here called epa.php. The next folder that we need to create inside of app is our models. So go to new and then models. Okay, so this is going to be the folder where all our database logic are going to be stored. And then the last folder that I want to create inside of app would be our routing folder. Okay, so we're going to use this folder to control our URLs. So when somebody make a request, this is the folder that will contain the logic that will help us to actually get the URL that is being requested and then pass it over to the controller to process it. Alright, so these are the folders that we'll be needing for these applications. Obviously, inside of our public folder, we still need some more folders here, like the images folder. So let me just create that. So call this images. Alright, so that will be all for this lecture. In the next lecture, we are going to set up our environment variables.